Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We don't know about you, but we are thankful that on his very first day in office, Joe Biden addressed one of this nation's most pressing problems, the crisis in girls' sports. The main problem with girls' sports, obviously, is that they lack diversity. Only girls get to play girls' sports. That's wrong. Joe Biden plans to fix it. Biden is breaking this country's turf ceiling. For the first time in history, men will be allowed to compete in, for example, girls' field hockey, and then change in the girls' locker room afterward. Joe Biden has signed an executive order requiring it. Even Barack Obama didn't do that. So say it with us now, hashtag civil rights hero. This is big. There's been a lot of talk recently about women's empowerment. It's a staple of liberal politics. You've heard it before. But it takes a real leader, a once-in-a-generation moral visionary, to go further than that, to use federal power to humiliate and endanger women on behalf of biological men. That is feminism at the next level. That is real empowerment. That's the Joe Biden program. He's been planning it for years. This was Biden last February.
We all know the animating promise of this country that all men and women are created equal has never been fulfilled.
Equal. By equal, Joe Biden means identical. There are no differences between men and women. They are precisely the same. That's his position. Those gender categories we've heard about since the dawn of recorded history are fake. Trump made them up. So there's no reason to protect women from men under any circumstances because the whole idea of men and women isn't real. Not everyone believes this, of course. Science isn't always popular. The peasants don't understand it. There's still troglodytes out there in the year 2021 who are trying to keep men out of women's sports, if you can even imagine. Yes, Donald Trump is gone, but that doesn't mean hate has taken a holiday. But Joe Biden is not intimidated by that. He doesn't care that pretty much no one in America agrees with him or even understands what he's talking about. When Joe Biden watches girls' gymnastics, as he frequently does, and doesn't see a single biological man walking the balance beam or swinging from the uneven bars, he doesn't just sit back and accept the status quo. He acts with force and certainty. Now, activism like that may seem modern, but it's not new for Joe Biden. For 60 years, he has been fighting transphobia, longer than many of us have been alive. Way back in the summer of 1962, decades before it was fashionable, Joe Biden confronted a vicious transphobe called Corn Pop.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys, and he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up, he said, "You walk out with that chain." And you walk to the car and say, "You may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head."
Corn Pop was a bad dude? Yeah, I'll say. Corn Pop was a bigot. He wanted to keep men out of the girls' changing room at a public pool in Wilmington. It was a different time back then. But Joe Biden wouldn't have it. He threatened to beat Corn Pop with a 6-foot chain. And that was just the beginning. Decades later, Joe Biden flew all the way to South Africa to free Nelson Mandela from prison. You're one of the very few. You have been really attacked. I don't think I'm overstating that. I think people have gone after you physically. Why aren't more people on your side, traditional feminists, saying what you're saying right now?
So there are a couple things going on. That is absolutely true. Several of us held an event last year at a public library, and as we left the event, hundreds of people ran after us screaming and threatening us. And this happens to women and also men, but mostly women who stand up against this gender identity movement. I also just do want to say regarding the executive order, it does a lot of things, but looking just at the title of the executive order, it combines sexual orientation and gender identity. And I just want to make it very clear that these two things are very different. And the lesbians and gay men who I know do not want anything to do with this movement. Sex is grounded in material reality, as you said, and that matters a great deal to people whose sexual orientation matters, which is all of us. And the lesbians and gay men that I know want to have nothing to do with this. And I think it's important that people understand this. We need to stop saying LGBT. We need to stop saying sexual orientation and gender identity.
I'm just laughing because one of my producers is agreeing with you in my ear. I hear that all the time. I think one of the reasons that people are afraid to speak up against this is they don't want to be seen as anti-gay or intolerant. But, I mean, this is a political decision to include a lot of people who don't necessarily have anything in common under one heading so that no one will complain about it. That's my read.
I think that that's right. And also, I just want to say, you know, where did this come from and why is this happening? One, this is rank misogyny, and it is coming from the left. Two, there is a tremendous amount of money behind this movement. And if your viewers are interested in learning more about that, because I know we don't have time tonight, please visit the 11th Hour blog. It's literally the number 11, 11th Hour blog. It goes into extraordinary depths to explain where the money is coming from and why this movement is so well funded. And third, we know that this movement has accomplished all that it has been able to accomplish, leading and up to and including this executive order by stealth.
Yep.
It has been documented that this was a deliberate strategy to go behind the people's backs, behind the media's backs, behind journalists' backs, and infect every institution of society.
It's so, and the question is why. I really hope that you will come back. I think this matters. It's, people write it off as, who cares, bathrooms, whatever. No, this is foundational. You obviously understand that. You're brave enough to say it out loud. I appreciate it. Kara Dansky, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And it is foundational. Sex differences are not just something that we made up at one point. They are the building blocks of human civilization, but also the source of so much delight and mystery and beauty. They would make life worth living, actually, in a lot of ways. Destroy those and we lose a lot, maybe everything. Well, we've got some exclusive reporting for you tonight. In Joe Biden's first day in office, the Department of Homeland Security issued a sweeping directive calling for a 100-day pause on deportations. We reported that last night. We now have an internal email sent yesterday to ICE officers in Texas that shows how this order was enacted. And we're quoting, "As of midnight tonight, stop all removals. This includes Mexican bus runs, charter flights, and commercial removals until further notice. All cases are to be considered no significant likelihood of removal in foreseeable future." In other words, stop sending people here illegally back to the country of origin. The official goes on to say this, and we're quoting, "Release them all immediately. No sponsor available is not acceptable any longer." The official notes in the email that he is just, quote, the messenger explaining the directive. It wasn't his idea, it was Joe Biden's. Now, this email was news to us. Friday's memorandum from the Biden administration to halt deportations did not call for people here illegally to be released from detention. We made some calls today and we learned that Homeland Security is currently hammering out how to enact the memorandum. It does not specifically call for the instant release of all migrants in detention. So what was this memo about? Just the result of the complete chaos that resulted when the incoming administration on its first day changed a policy this big without explaining what it means. Chaos. Well, we thought the last administration had a monopoly on that. Apparently not. Well, people on television say they've discovered the real reason you don't like them, because they're way better than you are, and you resent that. Adam Carolla is here to assess that assessment. Straight ahead.
One big popularity contest.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is the oldest homecoming queen or king in history. It's just one big extended high school. It's like they never leave high school. It's one huge popularity contest.
So it does seem to me a little bit like you're saying the people in charge of our culture are emotionally stunted and weird. So maybe a lot of what they produce, like their own neuroses, get projected forth onto the rest of us who maybe aren't so neurotic and self-involved.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I don't think they've ever left that mentality, and that's what perpetuates it. So if you get outside of that, if you start talking about lowering taxes or lowering regulation, then you get kicked out of the cool guys club. You get called a racist or homophobic or xenophobic, and you get thrown out of the cool clique, so you can't have lunch with the cool kids anymore. And everyone in Hollywood is so perpetually worried about being thrown out of the little lunch circle that they have to keep beating that drum. If you wonder, like, why are all these people saying the same thing, even though it doesn't make sense over and over again, it's a perpetual fear of being thrown out of the clique.
You've been, really quick, you've been in Hollywood your whole life. I mean, you're from there. Do you think that part of the anxiety we're seeing from the tastemakers is them solely recognizing they don't make the taste quite as much as they used to? They're losing control. Maybe that's why they're angry.
Yeah, the celebrity endorsement used to mean something, right? Now the celebrity endorsement doesn't mean anything. And as their power lessens and lessens over the years, I think they compensate and they sort of pedal that bike even harder. And what you're seeing right now is them on a Peloton just trying to get up to 10,000 RPMs.
Getting yelled at by some woman in spandex. Pedal harder! I love that image. Adam Carolla, great to see you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, the new administration has already enacted a bunch of pretty significant policies. The interesting thing is none of them are popular. Putting biological men in women's sports teams, who's for that? But when you have tens of thousands of federal troops in Washington, D.C., maybe you can do whatever you want. Is that why they're there? We don't know. It's worth asking, though, why are they there? That's straight ahead for us tonight. Hey, Rick.
I see what you did there, Tucker. Charles Ellis Schumer has been serving in Congress for 40 years, so he's made lots of speeches, and most of them are long forgotten. But this one may live forever. The senior senator from New York is a longtime critic of former President Trump, leading the charge for his impeachment trial scheduled to begin Monday. Schumer says it will be a full trial, and it will be a fair trial, and then he said this.
Senators will have to decide if they believe Donald John Trump incited the insurrection against the United States.
So which one is it? Is it both? We don't know, but it's trending on Twitter and inspired this tweet from Daily Wire writer Matt Walsh, who says, "I am ready to declare incited the erection the funniest political gaffe in American history. We should build a statue to Chuck Schumer to commemorate his achievement. That statue will only be from the waist up, though, to be safe." For the record, Tucker, I also cover wars and natural disasters. Thank God it's Friday.
Which is why you were the perfect man for that story. Rick
Thank you.
Leventhal, thank you so much. Great to see you tonight.
You too.
Well, the insurrection, if we can call it that, on January 6th was so scary with the Chewbacca guy with the Viking horns and all that, that our government moved 26,000 federal troops into the nation's capital, mostly National Guardsmen. As of today, long after the fact, there are still many thousands of National Guard troops left in the city. And we heard hours ago they plan to stay at least through mid-March. That sounds like an occupation. Of what and for what purpose? You have a right to ask that question. Matt Walsh is the host of the Matt Walsh Show. He's the one who just wrote that tweet, which we were thankful for. He joins us tonight. Matt, thanks a lot for coming on. So there's been a lot of news stories today, and a lot of conservatives have been outraged that the National Guard is sleeping on the ground in parking garages, and obviously my heart goes out to them. But it kind of obscures the larger question, was why are they there? Why do we have thousands and thousands of soldiers in our capital city tonight, do you think?
Right. Well, that's exactly the point. And first of all, this, when you look at the fact that we've got them in parking garages and they're not being taken care of, it does kind of shed some light on maybe why our adventurism overseas with the military goes awry so often, because these morons in Washington, they can't even take care of the troops when they're literally in their own backyard. But what are they going to do if they're in the backyard of some guy in Syria? Maybe that's why it goes wrong. But the greater question, of course, is why are they there? And we were told that the reason they're there is because there's this great threat of right-wing riots. There were supposed to be riots in state capitals all across the country for a week leading up to the inauguration. There's going to be a big thing on the inauguration day. Nothing happened. In fact, we were never really given any evidence by anyone that there was ever any real threat of this happening. We're supposed to just take their word for it. So I am left to assume that the reason they're there is to send a message to the real enemies of the Biden administration, which are not anyone overseas, but they're ideological enemies, people like us. They're sending a message to us, which is basically don't mess with us. I think that's.
It's hard to believe this is happening, and I don't want to stoke paranoia. I think their presence itself stokes paranoia and heightens the likelihood of crazy extremism and acts of violence. I think they're creating extremism by their behavior. I think it's really obvious. I think they know that. I think they may want it. I don't know. But I wonder why is no one asking this question? I lived in Washington for 35 years. I don't remember thousands of federal troops there under any circumstances. So, why is no one asking?
It's especially ironic. We call it ironic. I think, there's especially a double standard in people not asking when you consider that the people who are looking the other way right now, or in fact outright defending the military occupation of the nation's capital, are the same ones who lost their mind over the summer if there was any police response to months of rioting from BLM. I mean, even if just the local police showed up and did anything more than just pat the rioters on the back and tell them good job, anything beyond that, we were told that that's militarization. It's, that is tyranny. It's despotism. And yet we've got an occupation of the nation's capital, and we're supposed to just go with it, I guess.
Yeah, because we're not at war with our own people. The government is not at war with the American people. And if it starts to be, then we have a huge problem. And by the way, don't the governors control the National Guard? Why aren't they bringing their troops back to their states? Like, why are they playing along with this insanity?
Well, and the other problem is that we need the media, right? They're supposed to be the firefighters, the ones putting out the fires of tyranny, asking the tough questions. Of course, we know that that's not what they really do. But we need them. They're the ones who are in the White House every day, the press briefings. We need them to be asking questions like, hey, why do we have all these troops outside? What's going on? Why are we occupying D.C.? They don't. Instead, they're asking about the color scheme of Air Force One. Those are the questions we're asking. So it's really tough because we can sit here asking these questions. The White House doesn't care what we say. We need the people in the media to ask, and they don't care either.
Get your troops off my streets. It's not Managua. You don't own this country. It's really offensive, I think. But Matt Walsh, I appreciate your coming on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there's been a major escalation in the ongoing war on free speech online. We're following that story. Unfortunately, we have to tell you more about it. I think we will in a minute. Plus, there are new signs that there are other intelligent beings in the universe. By the way, that's not a speculation from some nutcase online or even a cable news host. That's according to an astrophysicist at Harvard. Everything we know about a very specific event that suggests we really aren't alone. That's straight ahead. Well, evidence mounts that the question of whether there is intelligent life outside this planet is not just the domain of crazy people online. An astrophysicist at Harvard has found that an artificial object may have been sent to Earth in 2017 from outside our solar system intentionally. That professor, Avi Loeb, details the theory in a new book called Extraterrestrial, The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth. It is out January 26th. It is being taken very seriously, as he is. Professor Avi Loeb joins us tonight. Professor, thank you so much for coming on. This probably requires a 3-hour-long conversation, but in a few minutes, if you wouldn't mind summing up what you believe we saw in 2017.
Well, thanks for having me. In October 2017, we discovered the very first object that visited the vicinity of the Earth from outside the solar system. And at first, astronomers thought it's just a rock, similar to all the comets and asteroids that we have seen from within the solar system.
Yes.
But as time went on, it looked very weird. It didn't have a cometary tail, no gases around it, yet it exhibited an extra push away from the sun. And the geometry that it had was extreme. When projected on the sky, it was at least 10 times longer than it was wide. And it was tumbling, and moreover, it didn't show any evidence for evaporation. And so the question arose as to what is creating this extra push that it exhibited. And one possibility is that it reflected sunlight, and that gave it the extra push. For that, it needed to be very thin, and sort of like a sail on a boat, except that the sail is being pushed by wind, whereas this object is pushed by light. And we are currently developing this technology for space exploration. It's called the light sail. And it's quite possible that this object was a thin light sail manufactured by another civilization. I should say there was another object discovered just a few months ago in September 2020. And that one was extrapolated back in time, and people found that indeed it was a rocket booster that was launched from the Earth that we produced. It also exhibited an extra push by reflecting sunlight because it was hollow, without a cometary tail. And so we can certainly tell the difference between a natural rock and a hollow object, a thin object, pushed by reflecting sunlight. Except in the case of this object, we know we produced it. In the case of Oumuamua, the weird object from 2017, we don't know who produced it.
What an amazing, and it's from outside our solar system. Very quickly, and again, I
Yes.
wish we had more time, Professor. What happened to it? Where did it go, this object?
So it was deflected by the sun and went in a different direction. In fact, it was sort of parked in the public parking lot in our vicinity at rest, and the sun ran into it, just like a giant ship running into a buoy. And it just kicked it. And the question is, are there many more out there? And if so, what is their purpose? And gladly, within a few years, we will have a much more sensitive telescope surveying the sky, and we are likely to find many more of these objects. And a photograph is worth 1,000 words. So if we can send a CubeSat with a camera close to one of these objects that comes towards us, then we can see what it looks like and tell whether it looks like a rock or something very different.
It seems worth doing. I'm not volunteering, but I think we should do that. Professor Loeb defends that's actually true, it sounds like, to me.
They're nowhere to be found. Build your own, except when you do, we'll hide behind the couch and we won't come out to defend you.
Exactly. Rachel Brevard, it's great to see you. I hope you'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
You might have noticed all of a sudden coronavirus not getting quite the coverage it did, and the coverage isn't as bleak as it was. If you thought that, you've not gone crazy. That's real.